What if I told you that people once built houses with 8 sides, thinking it would revolutionize home design forever? Or that an entire generation of Americans lived in houses made completely of steel panels? Architecture has always been about more than just 4 walls and a roof, and throughout history, we've seen some truly remarkable home styles that captured the imagination of their time only to disappear from modern construction entirely. Today, we're diving into 10 fascinating house styles that were once the height of fashion but are now relics of architectural history. From geometric experiments to artistic movements, these homes tell the story of changing lifestyles, technological advances, and shifting cultural values that shaped how Americans lived. Let's start with perhaps the most unusual house shape you've ever seen. In the mid-1800s, a man named Orson Fowler had a radical idea that would briefly capture America's imagination. He believed that 8-sided houses were the future of residential design, and for a while, it seemed like he might be right. The octagon house represented everything progressive homeowners thought they wanted. These distinctive 8-sided structures promised better airflow, more natural light, and incredibly efficient use of space. The mathematics were compelling. An octagon enclosed roughly 20% more interior space than a rectangle with the same perimeter, making these homes both cost-effective and energy-efficient long before those terms became popular. Many octagon houses featured flat roofs, topped with central cupolas, wraparound verandas, and innovative heating systems. Some even incorporated advanced water collection methods that wouldn't look out of place in today's sustainable homes. Despite these practical advantages, octagon houses never achieved mainstream success. By the early 1900s, the trend had largely vanished, leaving behind scattered examples like the magnificent Longwood Mansion in Mississippi. Fowler himself built an extravagant octagonal home that locals dubbed Fowler's Folly. The house was so over the top that it was eventually abandoned and demolished in 1897. Perhaps symbolizing the end of America's brief romance with geometric living. While octagon houses experimented with shape, the Queen Anne style went in the opposite direction, celebrating ornate complexity and decorative excess. Popular between 1880 and 1910, these homes replaced the French-inspired Second Empire style with something uniquely American and wonderfully whimsical. Queen Anne houses defied symmetry at every turn. They featured asymmetrical facades, elaborate porches, and intricate woodwork that often included patterned shingles and dramatic towers. Despite sharing a name with British architecture, American Queen Anne homes were far more playful, with varied rooflines and decorative details that seemed to compete for attention. The style spread rapidly across the country, influencing everything from grand mansions to modest cottages and urban row houses. After 1900, however, simpler colonial revival designs began replacing these ornate creations. Some Queen Anne features, like wraparound porches, managed to survive into the 1920s, but the full-blown style gradually disappeared. The Carson Mansion in Eureka, California, stands as perhaps the most photographed example of Victorian Queen Anne architecture, showcasing the style's incredible attention to decorative detail. As America entered the 20th century, a reaction against Victorian excess was brewing. The American Foursquare emerged between the mid-1890s and late 1930s as an antidote to ornate 19th century homes. These practical, boxy structures prioritized function over decoration, offering maximum interior space on small urban lots. True to their name, American Foursquare homes were typically 2.5 stories tall with a distinctly square, practical appearance. Also known as prairie boxes, they shared design philosophy with Frank Lloyd Wright's prairie architecture, emphasizing horizontal lines and efficient layouts. Most featured large front porches, hipped roofs with central dormers, and built-in cabinetry influenced by the emerging craftsman movement. What made American four-square homes particularly successful was their availability as mail-order houses. Companies like Sears and Aladdin shipped pre-cut materials nationwide, allowing families to assemble their own homes with relative ease. This approach made quality housing accessible to middle-class families, particularly in Midwestern urban neighborhoods and streetcar suburbs, where efficient, affordable housing was desperately needed. Speaking of the craftsman movement, American craftsman-style homes emerged in the early 20th century as part of the broader arts and crafts movement. These homes emphasized handcrafted design, natural materials, and honest construction methods that celebrated skilled workmanship. The style became especially popular in California, where small single-family homes known as California bungalows spread throughout growing communities. Craftsman homes featured low-pitched roofs, exposed structural beams, and extensive built-in furniture that maximized both function and aesthetic appeal. The movement was heavily promoted by Gustav Stickley, who published the Craftsman magazine to spread these design principles. Unlike the British arts and crafts movement, which remained largely exclusive to the wealthy, American designers found ways to make handcrafted homes more affordable for middle-class families. The style began declining by the 1930s as more modern architectural trends emerged, but not before leaving a lasting impact on American residential design. The Gamble House in Pasadena, California, built between 1908 and 1909, represents the pinnacle of craftsman architecture and continues to inspire designers today. Moving south, we encounter one of America's most distinctive regional house styles. The shotgun house dominated southern urban landscapes from the late 19th century through the 1920s, offering an ingenious solution to density and climate challenges. These remarkably narrow homes, typically only 12 feet wide, featured rooms arranged in a straight line with no hallways. Legend says you could fire a shotgun through the front door and have the blast exit cleanly through the back without hitting anything, though this colorful explanation likely came after the name was already established. The design probably originated in New Orleans, influenced by Haitian and West African architectural traditions dating to the early 1800s. Shotgun houses were inexpensive to build and allowed for high-density housing in rapidly growing urban areas. They were often constructed close together to maximize land use while taking advantage of natural cross-ventilation in hot southern climates. Many shotgun houses fell into disrepair during mid-20th century urban renewal projects, but recent gentrification has led to restoration efforts in some areas. Perhaps the most famous shotgun house belonged to Elvis Presley, who was born in one in Tupelo, Mississippi. That modest home is now preserved as a museum, representing both architectural and cultural history. The 1920s and 1930s brought Tudor revival architecture to American suburbs, inspired by medieval English homes and appealing to wealthy Americans seeking old-world charm. These homes featured steeply pitched roofs, decorative half-timbering, and tall brick chimneys that created a fairy tale aesthetic perfectly suited to suburban neighborhoods. Tudor revival homes became particularly popular in New York City suburbs like Westchester County, where they symbolized craftsmanship and historic authenticity. The style appealed to Americans who wanted their homes to suggest European heritage and traditional values, even when built with modern construction methods. After World War II, Tudor revival popularity declined as more modern, efficient home styles emerged. By the 1970s and 1980s, builders began simplifying the style with synthetic materials rather than authentic wood, creating maintenance advantages but losing much of the original charm that made these homes special. Another colonial-inspired style, Dutch colonial revival, became fashionable in the early 20th century during America's broader nostalgia for colonial architecture. These homes are instantly recognizable by their distinctive gambrel roofs, which resemble barn roofs, and wide overhanging eaves that create dramatic shadow lines. The style drew inspiration from original Dutch colonial homes built by 17th and 18th century settlers, mainly in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. However, unlike the early stone and brick structures, Dutch colonial revival homes were often built with wood siding and featured large dormer windows for additional space and natural light. These homes typically included symmetrical facades, central entry doors, and decorative shutters that enhanced their historic appearance. The style remained popular through the 1930s, especially in the northeastern United States. One of the most famous Dutch colonial revival homes is 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York, which gained notoriety through the Amityville horror legend. Perhaps no house style represents mid-20th century innovation quite like the Lustron Home. These prefabricated all-steel houses were built in the late 1940s to address the massive post-World War II housing shortage, representing a bold experiment in industrial home construction. Designed by industrialist Karl Strandlund, Lustron homes were intended as durable, low-maintenance alternatives to traditional wooden houses. Each home was constructed from enameled steel panels and assembled from kits containing over 3,000 individual parts. The interiors featured metal walls, built-in storage, and even unique combination washing machines that could clean both clothes and dishes. The Lustron Corporation planned to produce tens of thousands of these revolutionary homes, but financial problems and government intervention led to bankruptcy in 1950. Despite their short production run, over 2,000 Lustron homes were built, and many still stand today. Some were even exported to Venezuela for oil industry workers, demonstrating the international appeal of this innovative housing solution. The post-war era also gave us the atomic ranch, a variation of the classic ranch house that embraced sleek, modern design principles. While architect Cliff May had popularized ranch houses in the 1930s, drawing inspiration from Spanish colonial homes in California, the atomic ranch took the concept in a decidedly futuristic direction. By the 1950s, 9 out of 10 new American homes were ranches, reflecting their affordability and practicality for growing suburban families. Atomic ranch homes featured large picture windows, clerestory windows, and flat or butterfly roof lines that created seamless indoor-outdoor connections. They were known for bold colors and space-age design elements that captured the optimism and technological enthusiasm of the atomic era. Builder Joseph Eichler became famous for spreading this style across California, creating entire neighborhoods that embodied mid-century modern living. These homes represented a complete break from traditional architecture, embracing open floor plans and modern materials that seemed to promise a completely new way of life. Finally, we come to perhaps the most controversial style on our list. Brutalist homes emerged in the 1950s and gained popularity through the 1960s and 70s, featuring raw concrete, geometric shapes, and a minimalist aesthetic that completely rejected decorative elements. The style was inspired by modernist architects and emphasized function over form, often creating dramatic sculptural homes that seemed to grow from their concrete foundations. Many brutalist structures were built as social housing or university buildings, particularly in socialist countries where concrete symbolized equality and forward-thinking design. However, by the late 1970s, brutalism began declining as people associated it with urban decay and cold, uninviting living spaces. Despite this negative perception, some brutalist buildings have gained cultural significance and are now protected as architectural landmarks. Interestingly, the word brutalism comes from the French term béton brut, meaning raw concrete, not from the English word brutal. These 10 house styles represent more than just architectural trends. They tell the story of American dreams, technological innovation, and changing social values. From the mathematical optimism of octagon houses to the industrial pragmatism of Lustron homes, each style reflected the hopes and needs of its time. While we no longer build these distinctive homes, they continue to fascinate us with their bold experiments in living. They remind us that architecture is always evolving, always seeking new solutions to the eternal human need for shelter, comfort, and beauty. So, which of these lost house styles would you bring back if you could? Drop a comment below and let us know which design captured your imagination. Would you choose the whimsical charm of Queen Anne, the honest craftsmanship of American craftsmen, or perhaps the bold geometry of an octagon house? The conversation about great architecture never ends, and your voice matters in shaping how we think about the homes of tomorrow.